The internet is full of advice on how to become a high value man. On this channel, I've said this stuff too, but I recently listened to something that had me rethink the whole idea. On Esther Perel's amazing podcast, Where Should We Begin? I heard an episode where a female caller was struggling in her relationship with a man who self-identified as high value.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah, absolutely.
How long did it take before you're being the prize of this high value individual to your being the demise?
The episode was enlightening in many ways, but it did an especially good job at illustrating how this concept can be so easily twisted in order to excuse bad behavior. These days, many folks have made it their goal to become a high value man or woman, especially in the context of dating and relationships. And in this video, I'm going to break down what exactly that means, how it's getting misused, and how to avoid letting it ruin your chances at a healthy relationship. Let's take a good look at the theory of being a high value man and figure out if we want to keep parts of that concept or throw the whole thing away. And I do want to know, so let me know in the comments what you think. And while you're down there, make sure that you have subscribed because I really want to reach 1 million subscribers and I need your help to get there. In case you aren't familiar with the concept of a high value man or woman, it is something that has gained a lot of popularity inside of like certain self-help and like pickup artisty sort of circles. The idea is to build yourself up to be the best, most successful version of yourself so that you can find inner confidence, contentment, and of course, attract desirable partners. I mean, when you look at it on the surface, it seems pretty harmless, right? Even actually desirable. But the real questions lie in how we are defining value. What makes someone a high value person? Well, at its core, the concept of being high value places quite a lot of emphasis on external qualities. Typically, if you're trying to become quote unquote high value, you're focused on being your best self in order to be more desirable to others. Now, this could look like getting your finances sorted, or even just charting a course towards future financial success. It might mean eating well. It might mean putting in your time at the gym in order to look good, taking your appearance seriously by getting your hair cut, dressing well, etc. A lot of it has to do with social status and these sort of like external things. The focus is on becoming attractive, independent, and self-sufficient. And the idea is that you're putting yourself out there at the top or as close to the top of the social hierarchy in as many ways as possible. To be clear, there's nothing wrong with wanting to better yourself. But the problem is that when you put so much of the emphasis on those external traits that you begin to equate them with your worth as a human being. And the real danger comes up when we start seeing people that meet this external criteria as more valuable than people who don't. Anytime that we're starting to put people on a hierarchy, we are destined to end up hurting. Let me give you an example. A guy with a six-pack isn't worth any more than a guy without one. He just has more muscle. And having a six-pack is not an indication of whether or not he's going to be a good partner or have a successful romantic relationship. So you have to wonder, what are the effects of putting in all of this work and then deciding that you're now a high value person? And how does that affect the way that you show up in the relationships? Because it turns out that having this kind of mindset can create a sense of imbalance and even downright poisonous relationships. And there are 5 main ways that an emphasis on being high value can negatively affect your relationships. Number 5, it breeds entitlement. If you put yourself in the category of high value, this by default means that you are going to be assessing the people around you as either higher or lower value than yourself, and either ingratiating yourself to others or treating them as lesser than. And if you're someone who has put a lot of effort into getting into that high value position, then it might make sense that you feel like you deserve more as a reward. People who perceive themselves to be high value run the risk of developing a sense of entitlement. In a relationship, this can show up as expecting your partner to constantly accommodate your needs, your desires, your preferences. And if you feel entitled to certain treatment, it's easier to fall into the trap of taking your partner for granted, which is not a healthy dynamic in a romantic relationship and certainly doesn't lead to great sex, which this channel is all about. Number 4, it leads to emotional manipulation. People who have reached what they see as high value status may have the feeling that their partners are lucky to be with them. And in some ways, we should kind of all feel that way, right? It is a great thing to see your self-worth and to feel like you are the goal, the prize, that you have value in your relationship, right? But if problems start to occur because you are constantly reminding your partner of how high value you are, and you make them feel like maybe you could have anyone that you want, if they don't meet your expectations, especially, then they're in this state where they're constantly having to work for your approval. And this kind of behavior, whether it's directly stated in words or just subliminally implied through actions, can have emotionally manipulative effects. The "you should feel lucky to be with someone like me" message can erode your partner's self-esteem and their sense of self within the relationship. They may start to feel like they always have to be on their best behavior to impress you, which then stops them from showing up authentically. Or maybe you're listening to this and you're like, actually, that's my partner, and that's the effect that it's had on me. That brings me to number 3. It creates a lack of empathy. The third way that the high value concept erodes relationships is that by keeping so much focus on the high value traits, it's easy to lose sight of the other more critical emotional traits, such as empathy. If you're constantly focused on what you deserve as a high value person and the more status-based elements of your partnership, like how they look or how hot they are, how much money they make, then you're not paying attention to how you are showing up emotionally. Emotional support, communication, and mutual respect are the things that need to be present. They are the things that make up a relationship regardless of where a person falls along the quote-unquote value spectrum. The problem with the concept of being high value is that it puts a whole lot of emphasis on what you should be receiving and not so much on what you should be giving. It puts emphasis on the external things and not the internal things that make a relationship work. Which brings me to number 2. It maintains a power imbalance. Another way that viewing yourself as high value can negatively impact your relationships, or again, your partner viewing themselves as high value, is that it builds the concept of a hierarchy of worth inside of your partnership. And wherever there is a hierarchy, it means that one person is above and the other is below. So if you're constantly focused on gaining and maintaining high value status, it could make your partner feel like they need to keep up with you. This then makes them feel like they have to earn your love, which creates an imbalance of power and isn't functional in a healthy relationship. This is not a particularly healthy place to build a sexual relationship from. We need to see ourselves as equals in order to feel safe with another and have great sex with them. Otherwise, you might be having sex out of obligation or a sense of duty, or because that's what's expected of you. And to that, I say, ew. A sense of worth should be a given in all of our relationships. And if one or more partners feel like they have to earn their place, especially in ways that go beyond just being a good partner, this can lead to issues with self-esteem and even resentment for the other person. And resentment is a boner killer and a lady boner killer, both of them. Which brings me to number 1, there is a risk of emotional abuse. In more extreme cases, the high value mentality can lead to straight up toxic, manipulative, abusive behaviors. People who fall into feeling the need to be high value thrive off of having others below them. This isn't a quality that is always negative, but if it starts to show up in your romantic partnership, it can turn into abuse really fast. If you are making your partner or they're making you feel like you aren't good enough to be with them, and you constantly have to try to be better, then you might actually have a experience of demeaning or belittling. These things can add up a lot over time. So the main issue with the high value label is that it confuses external success with internal worth. It operates under the belief that your worth as a human being goes up or down based on what you look like, how much money you earn, how desirable you are to the opposite sex. And that isn't a sustainable relationship foundation. It's just not. When a person fixates on being high value, they run the risk of missing out on the actual deep aspects of intimacy and the peace and the joy and the satisfaction that only comes from feeling like you're in a relationship with an equal. So while there's definitely nothing wrong with trying to earn more money, with wanting to look good, with taking care of yourself, here are 4 ways to make sure that you don't get lost in the high value sauce and that you maintain a healthy dynamic with yourself and with your partner. Number 1, redefine value. Regardless of what you are trying to achieve in life, make sure to define your relationship values clearly and stick to them. Value in a relationship should never be dictated by external factors. Instead, put the focus on emotional intimacy, care, safety, communication, kindness, respect, the way that you support one another's growth and well-being. Number 2, make sure to prioritize connection. instead of focusing on status within your relationship. And that means both your status or your partner's status. Instead, focus on connection. Prioritize things like intimacy, communication, and experiences that actually deepen your bond. Number 3, maintain equality and mutual respect. A healthy relationship is built on equality, and this equality should be present in all aspects of your bond, regardless of differences in financial success or physical symbols of success or any other types of status. Make sure that you're both contributing positively to each other's self-esteem and find ways to make each other feel valued within the relationship rather than keeping a tally of who is doing better in which department. And then number 4, recognize toxic patterns. Finally, remember that relationships are inherently complex things. They tie into our own hangups, our complexes, our self-esteem issues, our attachment issues. The dynamics within our relationships are constantly shifting, and it is important to maintain a commitment to keeping things healthy. It doesn't just stay healthy on its own, folks. It's like a plant. You gotta give it sunlight and water and potassium or nitrogen and all that. Keep an eye on how you are feeling within your dynamic. Take ownership of any ways that you're contributing to the issues in your relationship, especially when it comes to this hierarchical status thing. By openly addressing anything that could be unhealthy, you are taking the first step to getting it back on track. And of course, if you need help with this, you can always turn to coaching or even therapy. Sometimes external support can be very helpful in reflecting and allowing you to see the patterns that are getting in the way of you having a happy relationship and a great sex life. To conclude, there is nothing wrong with trying to achieve the things that you associate with being a high value man, or your partner achieving the things that she believes make her a high value woman. As long as you are humble enough to remember that these things don't actually make you more or less worthy than another human being. Focusing too much on the external markers like wealth, social status, appearance, it doesn't make you a better partner. It actually kind of could make you a worse partner. Maybe it makes you into an asshole if you go too far with it. And if you do take it too far, you are going to be someone who cannot have a healthy and fulfilling relationship. And that is what I am all about creating here on this channel. I'm Caitlin V. Make sure that you are subscribed if you want more content that helps you to understand the hidden and sneaky dynamics that get in the way of you having the best sex of your life. Thank you for watching, and I will see you here next week. Bye-bye.